All right. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. We are live on Rockfin and YouTube. Please try and support me on Rockfin, ROKFIN.com. It's an alternative channel to YouTube. And they do not censor me or suppress me. And that's why it is a good thing to support them. And it's a good place to support this channel. What's up, guys? Early chatters are in. Thank you for being here. Started a little bit late. Sorry, I just had so many things to do this morning. I was up very early and very, very, very busy. And as soon as I finish this live stream, I'm going to be very, very busy again. But just trying to, I don't know, get some things done. Get things accomplished, I guess. And anyways, yeah, Kuro, people are kind of discussing, obviously, in conjunction with the title, the idea of geoengineering or solar radiation management or whatever. And yes, Kuro, I totally agree with you. The idea that they haven't tried out any geoengineering so far is just absolutely, I find it ludicrous. I find anybody who believes that they haven't done or tried out geoengineering so far, anybody who believes that, you know, they're still in the testing phase, is the actual conspiracy theorist, because you have to really suspend a lot of disbelief to believe that. You know, you really got to ignore a lot of actual factual statements by the U.S. military, as you know, 70 or 80 years ago, saying that we want to control the weather. We want, you know, they've been doing multiple experiments in the atmosphere and space, and you know, it's just absolutely it's impossible. Let me just put it like that. And I'm saying 100% impossible that they have not tried out some form of geoengineering or at least tested it. But I believe they've gone beyond testing it on some levels. I'm not a Dane Wigington person. I think Dane Wigington is a little like, I think it's somewhere in the middle, right? They're doing some, but it's not to the extent that Dane Wigington says it is. I listened to the Paul Beckwith video the other day. Paul Beckwith debating Dane Wigington. And I thought it was, I don't know, I thought it was a decent debate. People were saying that Dane Wigington didn't let Paul talk. That's not true. He let Paul talk, and there were moments where Paul wasn't letting Dane talk. And Paul was being like super condescending, like I'm the professor. This is ridiculous. And so I felt there were problems with both of their positions. You know, Paul Beckwith is totally in the no, that's impossible camp, or you know, or yes, there's been weather modification, like wartime weather modification, but they're not doing geoengineering, which again, I find that to be 100% impossible that you could do weather modification 60 years ago in the middle of a war, or 50 years ago, and go, but yeah, we're gonna hold off on the geoengineering because that would be bad, right? The U.S. military decided not to geoengineer because they had a conscience, or they thought it was a bad idea, that it might hurt people. Really? Really? If you believe that, you are an absolute dope. So if you are a scientist, a climate scientist, an ecologist, anybody who is involved in climate whatsoever, and you think that there has been no geoengineering testing being done, and I mean not in the last 2 years, but in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, if you believe that hasn't happened yet, you are a dope. You are a straight up dope. And I don't believe you. I don't believe that you think that that's true. If you think that's true, then you're super naive. Like, that's just a ridiculous thing to think. Why wouldn't they do it? Why wouldn't they do that? Anyways, but you know, also on Dane Wigington's side, I have a problem with Dane. Dane's just like, they're poisoning everything. They're poisoning the air and the water and the trees and the dirt. You know, he thinks that climate, like, he believes in climate change, but he thinks that weather geoengineering is like the cause of all of our weather or all kinds of weather events. And I think that's a little ridiculous too. You know, people that are way off the deep end of like, they're causing all these wildfires and all these hurricanes are totally man-made. No. That's ridiculous. So you gotta reel it in. You gotta be somewhere, come on, use your brain and your common sense, and somewhere in the middle, that's what's happening. So anyways, maybe I would like to pick out some key parts of that video and talk about it further in depth, but I'm getting there. It's going to take me couple more days to actually like go through it and pick out the parts that I want to talk about. Basil Peterson says Kurt Vonnegut's brother invented cloud seeding for the ski resort industry. Yes, and of course cloud seeding has been, they're absolutely doing weather modification. China does it. China's admitted to it. Volkswagen got caught modifying the weather in Mexico for their car plant. So it's, they're absolutely altering the weather or altering parts of our atmosphere for whatever purposes, whether it's just, to clear the skies before a tourist event or to cause, to bring about, possibly ideal factors for maybe farming or other kind of events. I don't know what, but, the reality is that climate change is happening and climate change is continuing apace. And all the extreme weather events that we're seeing and the wildfires and the warming and the Arctic ice melt, all of that stuff is, totally in line with global heating, right? All of that stuff is exactly what happens when you warm the planet. So that's just, that's just a straight line. That's just an easy thing. You don't have to complicate it whatsoever. That's Occam's razor. When you heat the planet, all these things happen, right? You get storms, you get the ice melts, you get wildfires, you get drought, you get extreme weather, weather events here and there. You get the polar vortex, you get all this stuff. All this stuff is in line with the planet heating. So that's just obvious. You don't have to complicate that with like, they're making all this happen. They're shooting chemicals into the sky. And Dane Wigington is a little like overboard on that shit. Everything is just, they're manipulating every weather event. No, they're not. They're not. They're not. But if say that they're not manipulating any weather or that they're not trying some form of geoengineering, I think is also no. That is a no. You can't actually think that they haven't tried that out yet. Yeah, Kuro Hikes, the main reason I'm suspicious is because it is so easy to do. It's not some hard thing to do. If you look at Dr. Keith's proposal, it's not hard. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's my problem is this too, is like, oh, we're doing some tests in Arizona. We're going to send up some balloons and shoot some, shoot some stuff into the air and cool the planet. We're going to see if this works. We're going to test it out. Bullshit. In 2020 or 2015, however long they've been talking about it in recent history, bullshit. Absolute bullshit. If you think that they haven't tried this out yet, you are, again, you're on something. And it's, I don't know if it's hopium or I don't know if it's establishment, acceptability politics or, oh, we can't, we can't, whatever. But I have serious problems with people that think this is going on. And if you watch Paul Beckwith's video about chemtrails, it was ridiculous. Like, it was so unscientific. There were so many holes in it. Maybe I'll go through that video and just point out the stupid things about that video. But, I know Paul Beckwith is a smart guy, but that video was nonsense. Anyways, whatever. We're doing enough geoengineering to the planet as it is. Boulder of Lamppost says solar radiation management could be viable. It could be viable for a short term, and it could also have damaging side effects. I'd prefer something more natural. Sandy says, if you read comments on Dane Wigington's page, climate change deniers are in force. They support Dr. Willie soon. Yeah, I mean, yeah, just, he's in the side of the, everything is conspiracy part of the planet, of the world or whatever. And it's just, the deniers don't listen to it. When he says climate change is real, he just errs too much on the side of geoengineering and not enough on the side of climate change for me. That's, yes, Kuro hikes. In theory, you could make it so it never rains again in one area, but rains all the time in another. Right. And that's the side effects. Oh, my stream is crackling. I'm sorry. Get my attention, but I don't know what you were. Oh, I see. You were saying crackling. My bad. Well, at least you could hear my words, right? You could hear what I was saying, I hope. The crackle adds to the gloom. Very good. I think I fixed it. I don't know. I think it's just, yeah, Sandy, I don't know. Whatever. Conscious Agent says, as the world warms, clouds could disappear. Yeah. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into it. I don't know why I went on a, well, I know why, but just ended up going on a rant about that. My voice is reasonable. 5x5, very good. Yeah, and reasonable is, somewhere in the middle of, well, absolutely not, and everything is, again, somewhere in the middle of everything's a conspiracy, and there are absolutely no conspiracies. Somewhere in the middle is actually where the truth is. I did fix the crackling. I know how to fix it. I know a few things. Before we get into the cloud seeding discussion, let's talk about this. So many things to talk about, and I already chewed up a lot of time rambling. My bad. I'm sorry. This is from fizz.org. Russian oil giant announces start of vast Arctic project. Oh boy. This is from November 25th, a couple days ago. Ramping up the fossil fuels, guys. Because nothing says we care about climate change like starting a new oil project. Russian oil giant Rosneft on Wednesday announced the start of operations for its giant Vostok oil project in the Arctic. Part of the country's strategic energy plan. Where have we heard this? It sounds like any U.S. president, right? We need a strategic energy plan, which has been criticized by environmentalists. It is with great pleasure that I inform you of the start of the practical implementation of the project, Rosneft chief executive Igor Sechin told Vladimir Putin at a meeting in Moscow. He thanked Putin, with whom he has close relations, for the adoption of a law facilitating Russian investments in the Arctic. Thanks a lot, Vlad. We appreciate you, boy. The prospecting and exploration work are now underway in accordance with our timetable, Sechin said, adding that the design work for the 480-mile oil pipeline and port have been completed. Strategic plan for Russia's mineral resources stretches to 2035 and is banking on growing global demand, though it does not predict that natural gas will partially replace oil and coal. Right? This is a vast Arctic project. They are predicting increased global demand, not decreased. I wonder why. They don't see anybody stopping anytime soon. Anyways, let's see. Environmentalists urged the Russian government last year to stop granting licenses to exploit several Arctic deposits. Ha! There is no stopping. There is no stopping the oil. Anyways, yeah. Good times in the Arctic. It's just heating up. just heating up. Also in the Arctic, this from Arctic News also from Wednesday, November 25th, carbon dioxide levels continue at record levels despite COVID-19 lockdown. The WMO reports the increase in carbon dioxide from 2018 to 2019 was larger than that observed from 2017 to 2018. Gets a winks. And larger than the average annual growth rate over the last decade. The rise has continued in 2020. The lockdown did cut emissions of many pollutants and greenhouse gases, but any impact on carbon dioxide levels, the result of, and this is the problem with stopping. Obviously, I've suggested that maybe we, do some kind of all hands on deck, lockdown in the face of climate change. But even if we stop all emissions, or greatly lower emissions, the CO2 levels will still climb slowly but surely for a little while anyways. Or maybe for a long while, I don't know. Let's see. The results of cumulative past and current emissions is in fact no bigger than the normal year-to-year fluctuation. So the impact on carbon dioxide levels, overall carbon dioxide levels, even with the lockdown, very, very minimal effect, if any at all. Carbon dioxide remains in the atmosphere for centuries and in the ocean for even longer. The last time the Earth experienced a comparable concentration of CO2 was 3 to 5 million years ago, when the temperature was 2 to 3 C warmer and sea level was 10 to 20 meters higher than now. 10 to 20 meters. Think about that. Only 2 to 3 C warming brings 30 to 60 feet of higher sea level. Think about that. Think about your current sea level in any coastline close to you. Think about it being 30 to 60 feet higher. And think about what that does to, whoever's living close to the ocean, or major cities, etc. Nuclear power plants, etc. There weren't 7.7 billion inhabitants. No, 3 to 5 million years ago, right? Oh. Wait. There weren't 7.7 billion inhabitants, said WMO Secretary General Professor Petteri Tal. What are you saying? What? Oh my God, what is he saying? Is he talking about overpopulation? Oh, I thought this was debunked. I thought that whole overpopulation thing was debunked. I mean, come on, guys. We just treat everybody nicely and we're fair and equitable when we're totally, resources are, infinite. It's infinite, guys. All the kooky, like motivational speaker / spiritual guides out there. Oh, they're abundance. Just meditate on abundance. It's gonna be fine. If 7.7 billion people meditate on abundance, we'll be fine. It's gonna be fine. The COVID-19 pandemic is not a solution for climate change. However, sure it is on some level. However, it does provide us with a platform for more sustained and ambitious climate action to reduce emissions to net zero through a complete transformation of our industrial, energy, and transport systems. The needed changes are economically affordable and technically possible and would affect our everyday life only marginally. It is to be welcomed that a growing number of countries and companies have committed themselves to carbon neutrality. There is no time to lose, etc., etc. Anyways, this is, hold on one second. Check out methane on this graph, if you guys can see this. And that's a big old fat ouch. Look where we are. Look at methane. This is insane. CO2 here, nitrous oxide here, all going up. But I mean, this methane chart has got to cause some pause. That's got to put a pause in your step. It should. Above image illustrates a steep rise in methane compared to carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide. Levels of carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide reached new highs. 2019 reports the WMO. Carbon dioxide rose to 410, actually now very close to 420, or almost tapped 420. Methane to 1877. Nitrous oxide to 332 parts per billion, 123% of pre-industrial. Methane at 260% of pre-industrial. Carbon dioxide at 148%, or actually we'll give it a clean 150, since that's basically what it is. So given that there's no time to lose, why mention carbon neutrality and not 100% clean renewable energy? Also, let's not lose sight of other emissions, such as N2O. Yes, dramatic cuts in CO2 emissions do need to happen rapidly, and yes, this does require a complete transformation of industry, energy, and transport. Nevertheless, N2O emissions are also important. Most N2O emissions result from land use, such as food production and waste handling, which must also change. The IPCC gave N2O a lifetime of 121 years and a 100-year global warming potential of 265 times that of carbon dioxide, 265 times. Furthermore, N2O also causes stratospheric ozone depletion, which is good for plants and animals. Not at all. Not at all. The IPCC in special report Climate Change and Land found that agriculture, forestry, and other land use activities accounted for some 13% of CO2, 44% of CH4, and 82% of N2O emissions from human activities globally during 2007 to 2016, representing 23% of total net anthropogenic emissions of greenhouse gases. Wow. So a quarter, am I reading that correctly? A quarter of total emissions, I think they're saying all time, happened between 2007 and 2016. Wow. If emissions associated with pre- and post-production activities in the global food system are included, the emissions could be another 14% higher, i.e. as high as 37% of total net anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions, the IPCC. Total during that period, sorry. I for some reason I've read that as, let me back up. Yeah, so total emissions during that time, that was from agriculture, forestry, and land use. And post-production activities, if you want to include those pre and post, then it becomes 37%. Let's get back to that 23%. The IPCC calculates that 23% by using a GWP of 28 for CH4 over the first few years. However, the GWP of CH4 is more than 150 global warming potential, as discussed in an earlier post. When using a GWP of 150, land use emissions rise from 23% to 31%. Again, magic accounting is a good way to make people feel like it's not that bad, or everything's going in the right direction, or we're doing everything we can. Add another 14% from further food-related emissions, and the total share for land use becomes 45% of people's emissions. In other words, all polluting emissions need to be reduced. Sure. Moreover, a recent paper by Jorgen Randers et al. Points out that even if all greenhouse gas emissions by people would stop immediately, and even if CO2 levels in the atmosphere would revert back to pre-industrial levels, and even if with relatively modest rises in methane levels, overall temperatures would still keep rising for centuries to come. That's right, Kevin Shanholzer. Don't forget to consume. I'm working on those T-shirts, by the way. I was trying to get them out by Thanksgiving, but it didn't really happen. So I apologize. I was working on something else. But coming soon to a theater near you, if you're so interested. Where are we? God, I'm just lost. Anyways, yeah, even if CO2 levels in the atmosphere reverted, so even if we sucked out enough carbon out of the atmosphere to go back to 280, even if we did all that, overall temperatures would still keep rising for centuries to come. Wow. That is truly devastating. A recent paper points out that solar geoengineering may not prevent strong warming from direct effects of CO2 on stratocumulus cloud cover. This means that the threat is even more menacing when including large methane releases that threaten to occur as temperatures keep rising in the Arctic. And sediments at the seafloor of the Arctic Ocean threaten to get destabilized, resulting in the eruption of huge amounts of methane. Yeah. It doesn't look good, guys. Stronger methane releases from subsea permafrost can be expected, says a paper by Natalia Shakova et al. A 1,000-fold methane increase could occur, 1,000-fold, resulting in a rise of as much as 6C within 80 years, or maybe even quicker than that, if you believe the warming potential, with more to follow after that. That's according to a paper by Atsushi Obata et al. Seafloor methane releases could be triggered by strong winds, causing an influx of warm, salty water into the Arctic Ocean. Atlantification is already happening, as described in an earlier post. Yeah. This is all very depressing, guys. I do want to move on to the other thing I want to cover today, but the next two images show areas with high levels of methane as indicated by the magenta color. That's this remaining present over the Arctic Ocean, even at higher... Oh, for Christ's sake. Sorry, guys. I think I have... something happened here. You still with me? Okay, good. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to send you into infinity. I just thought I was buffering. Tom Jode says, Kevin, your local CO2 today is 440 ppm. Enjoy. Oh, yes. Let's get back to this. The higher the altitude, the more methane will be concentrated over the equator, yet at 225 millibar, high methane levels are still visible north of Siberia, while global mean methane levels were still very high. Yeah, anyways, I think you guys get the picture. This is not good. Not good. Let's move on to this last story I want to cover today. Depressing. Study shows a big issue with using cloud seeding to solve global warming. You don't say. The clouds that hang low and thick in our sky, reflecting sunlight back out into space, are melting into thin air as the world warms. This is from November 20th, 2020 by Carly Casella. Out of Science Alert. The loss will not only trigger greater climate changes than we expected, but new research suggests it could also undermine the potential of future geoengineering solutions. The idea of seeding clouds with an injection of light reflecting particles to reflect sunlight back into space, thereby cooling the planet, is a controversial one, yet to be proven useful or even feasible in the real world. Some scientists worry about the unforeseen dangers of meddling in our planet's climate any further, while others point out this climate hacking solution does nothing to address ocean acidification or adverse ecosystem effects. All this very true. It is only as good as the clouds in our sky, and in the coming century there may be a lot less of those, even in the most ideal scenario. Where solar geoengineering works with no side effects, a new model suggests it may not be enough on its own. If the world's carbon emissions continue to rise unfettered, we will trigger a much larger cascade of warming, cloud seeding, or no. And, we just read in the article in Arctic News blog that that doesn't even matter. We've already triggered a warming, whether we stop or not, or whether we go back, whether we're able to go back even in time to a gentler time when there was less CO2 in the air. Hence, elevated greenhouse gas concentrations may trigger substantial global warming by reducing the cooling effect stratocumulus clouds provide. And I'd like to pause right here and tell you, this is exactly what the kind of geoengineering I think is going on. This is the geoengineering that is in practice right now. This is not chemtrails, but contrails, right? So I've witnessed every single day planes in the sky. So while Trump has been in office, they've been a little bit like on and off. But I remember, a few years ago when Obama was in office, they were like every single day in LA. Every day, every day, every day, every day. The planes create these contrails. The contrails stay in the air for hours, oftentimes all day long. And they cool the earth, right? They're creating clouds. They're making it's very simple. It's a very simple thing. It's not that hard. You create the clouds because the clouds are already melting from global warming. You create these clouds, it cools, has a cooling effect. I'm telling you, every time the sun comes out and it's about to be a baking hot day and it's not supposed to be a baking hot day, they are busy as hell up there with the planes making the clouds. I don't know. This is not super scientific, but just observing, it's just so obvious what's happening. It's incredibly obvious what they're doing. And people try to explain it away, and I'm a pilot. No, there's no pilot. Oh, it's just no. Sorry. Why do I know this? Why do I know this? Because there are times when there's a lot of humidity in the air, or there's the conditions for creating contrails don't necessarily make the contrails, right? So you want to tell me that it's a naturally occurring contrail? Okay, great. Then there should happen every time that there are conditions for contrails, and that's not what's happening. They're happening, at odd times. Sometimes the conditions for contrails are there and there's no contrails. Why is that? I don't know. Sometimes there's no conditions for contrails there. There are many contrails. Why is that? I don't know. You tell me. All of these arguments I'm making are extremely logical, way logical arguments. I'm not saying anything that people shouldn't. If you're not understanding what I'm saying, it means you're intentionally trying to not understand what I'm saying, because very smart people can figure out what the hell I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. So maybe you don't want to hear it, or maybe you don't want to think about it, or maybe you don't want to acknowledge it. And I got some super chats, guys. Thank you, Kevin Shanholzer. I appreciate it. It's Black Friday. Don't forget to consume. And I got one from Muzza. Muzza, thank you so much. Muzza, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. There's a 24/7 chat on Discord, guys. If you would like to hang out on Discord and chat with the people, it's called Black Bear. Here it is. There's a link right here. Muzza has posted the link, Discord. Just go to the link that's in the chat that says Discord. There's a link. I'll re-link this link here we go. This is the Discord link. I just put it up. So if you want to go to the 24/7 Discord chat, let's go back to this article real quick. Anyways, yes, so the clouds are melting. That's going to create less heating, or I mean less cooling. Gene says, Kevin, I don't understand what you were saying. Don't judge me. Okay. Well, do you want to understand? I'm just wondering. So here's what I'm saying is this. So I have seen contrails, persistent, long-lasting, everyday contrails. At one point they were happening every single day in Los Angeles for, months, years, right? So what I'm saying is this, is if they're naturally occurring contrails, you would have points in time where the weather would not be viable for contrails, and you'd have points in time where the weather is viable for contrails. So if you have contrails happening every single day for months on end, that's kind of impossible, right? Because the weather is going to change, the conditions are going to change and make contrails, not naturally occurring, right? Right after Trump took office in 2017, all the contrails in the sky above LA disappeared for like 3 months straight. And I was like, whoa, where did all these naturally occurring contrails go? I saw that. I witnessed that. I'm not making it up. I'm not crazy. That's what I saw. The contrails disappeared for 3 months straight. So again, 3 months there were no conditions whatsoever for naturally occurring contrails to happen. So everything that I said is completely logical and totally makes sense. And anybody, even a meteorologist could understand what the hell I'm saying, right? There are conditions that would create naturally occurring contrails. And what Paul Beckwith was trying to say in his video was that contrails happen way in the stratosphere because it's really cold and there's icy particles. And I'm like, dude, there are contrails happening that are like cloud level, that is not stratosphere level, right? There are contrails happening way lower, like cloud level, like low clouds. Planes are creating low clouds. So your whole, contrails happening way up in the sky in the stratosphere, and, that's how he explained it away. Again, that shit didn't make any sense. It's called observation, right? If you observe it long enough and you see a pattern and you observe it day after day, you can start to understand what the pattern is or is not, right? And so you have these scientists inside of their buildings and they don't ever look at the sky, and they're like, they've got these equations in their head and they're like, we're going to explain this away using the equations in my head, but I don't ever look at what's happening. Right? Does that make sense? Am I making sense now? Anyways, yes, contrails make it cooler, and that's what happens. Boiled rope lampposts, the contrails cover the, very hot day, the sun is out. I'm telling you, it happens all the time in LA. If the sun's out early in the morning and it's going to be very hot, you see the planes getting busy. They are making contrails. They make contrails in front of the sun the whole day. They cross the sky. They are trying to keep it cool so that people don't go, why the hell is it 105 degrees in January? That's what they're trying to do. So, whatever. I went off. I went way off on a tangent. But that's the geoengineering I think that is going on right now. And if you just if you want to hang out and look at the sky and see what's happening, you will understand that I am correct. Anyways, this is an extreme scenario where carbon dioxide continues to accumulate in the atmosphere at a concentration 4 times greater than today. Hold on, let's go back. Some scientists worry about unforeseen dangers and meddling in our planet's climate any further, while others point out this climate hacking solution does nothing to address ocean acidification. Anyways, okay. So we talked about the clouds in the sky. There may be a lot less of those. Even in the most ideal scenario where solar geoengineering works with no side effects, a new model suggests it may not be enough on its own. If the world's carbon emissions continue to rise unfettered, we will trigger a much larger cascade of warming, cloud seeding or no. Hence, elevated greenhouse gas concentrations may trigger substantial global warming by reducing the cooling effect stratocumulus clouds provide. Yeah, the authors of the new study write, even when all or much of the effect of greenhouse gas at the top of the atmosphere is compensated by solar geoengineering. This is an extreme scenario where carbon dioxide continues to accumulate in the atmosphere at a concentration 4 times greater than today. That would take about a century, researchers said, and yet it could still very well happen, even if we spent decades injecting aerosols into the atmosphere. Wow. Today, stratocumulus clouds cover huge swaths of the subtropical ocean, and recent evidence suggests they are responsible for reflecting about 5 degrees Celsius of global warming back out into space. 5 degrees Celsius of warming. Holy moly. See, yeah, the thing is they can't do it all over the planet. They can't cover the whole planet, but they can do regional cloud cover. But yeah, doing it all over the planet would be a major lift. But I mean, will they try? Of course they will. As greenhouse gases build up in the atmosphere, high-resolution simulations show these clouds will thin out and maybe even dissipate completely. Even under modest warming scenarios, the results show subtropical stratocumulus clouds gradually thin out and break apart. Without this protective shield, all that heat from the sun can then sink freely into the lower atmosphere in our planet's oceans, raising temperatures around the globe even further. That is truly frightening. As such, solar geoengineering may only work up to a point, and in the long run, researchers say it's no replacement for cutting carbon emissions. Solar geoengineering is not a fail-safe option to prevent global warming, the authors conclude, because it does not mitigate risks to the climate system that arise from direct effects of greenhouse gases on cloud cover. Oh, yes, it is all about the clouds. The clouds. More and more scientists are talking about the clouds. The effect of global warming on the clouds and how much of an impact that's going to be. Their model illustrates what happens when increased CO2 concentrations occur at the same time as increased cloud cooling. As such, it assumes that solar geoengineering actually works and that our emissions will continue unchecked. But while growing research has tied increased greenhouse gas emissions to a potential tipping point of thinning cloud cover that's often overlooked in climate models, it's still not clear at what concentration those clouds begin to thin or how the impacts their light reflecting abilities. Surface warming on Earth leads to evaporation and increased atmospheric moisture, which appears to weaken cloud top cooling. Sort of like how the ground takes longer to cool at night in humid weather as opposed to dry conditions. The new model is an interesting exploration of what happens when emissions continue while cloud cooling improves, but it is still a relatively simple explanation that does not take into account seasonal cycles, noise and meteorological data, or regional differences. The lack of spatial heterogeneity and temporal variability in our simulations make it difficult to quantify more precisely the range of CO2 concentrations over which stratocumulus breakup may occur, or when the clouds reform after CO2 concentrations are lowered. I'm absolutely positive a lot of that has already started. In some places, that the stratocumulus breakup has already started occurring. Caveats and limitations notwithstanding, the results illustrate a hitherto unrecognized risk of solar geoengineering. The risks and benefits of solar geoengineering remain uncertain, and we need far more research before we can say for sure whether it's worth pursuing at all. Clouds are really hard to simulate. Seeding them is a whole other issue. For now, reducing our emissions is still undoubtedly the best option. All right, guys. I don't think you could see, well, whatever. You could hear me. If you couldn't see me reading that, and Gene says, Yes, I want to understand. I'm not around this concept except for here. Yeah. I mean, there are more and more studies coming out around clouds and the importance they have in keeping the planet cool and the impact of global warming on clouds, and it's extremely important. It looks like climate change has a major impact on clouds. Um, Judy Truitt says, I don't know what they are, but I see them quite often, though not in the past few months. I have watched them form clouds over time. Yes. Yeah, I mean, contrails form clouds, and that is a fact. And most scientists or people who talk about contrails say, yeah, that's what happens. We see, naturally occurring or not, whether that just happens from airplane emissions, it happens. So that has a big effect too on global warming or global dimming or aerosol masking, right? The planes are up there creating these contrails, and those contrails have an effect on heating or cooling. And my guess is that, you know, people who are in charge of certain things obviously know the effect that they have on heating and cooling and are manipulating it. That's not very hard. It's not a hard jump or leap of logic. Anyways, see you later, Basil. Appreciate you. I have run out of time, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. Didn't necessarily mean to go off into the geoengineering conversation. We were talking about clouds and or seeding clouds, future geoengineering, the accepted, because it's in the future and it isn't happening yet. So it's accepted to talk about future geoengineering. We were talking about that as well. Anyways, I will be back tomorrow at the regular time of 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until next time, peace.